So let's start with the second part of week 1 innovations, blockchain related. So let's start with the forkology from Antonopoulos, as you might have seen from the previous level. So all about forks in this very first part. So what is a fork? A fork is a method to upgrade your network. So a fork is not only a fork in a restaurant, but also a method to upgrade your network. So why would you upgrade a network? So first of all, for example, is to add new functions. So first one up is add new functions. So you could do new stuff. So for example, in Bitcoin, that would be the Lightning Network and stuff to upgrade your network. Second one is if you found some bugs and secure your network, so security reasons. And the third one is that you, for example, what happened in Ethereum is that you reverse transactions. Yep, that's what sometimes happening as well, as you have learned during the DAO in Ethereum. We will take a closer look later on. So a fork is a method to upgrade your network, and you would do this for 3 reasons. You could add new functions, for security reasons, or third one, for example, to reverse transactions. And there are many more reasons to do this. A good example of how you could envision forkology in centralized variants is like an open Facebook, where everybody can copy the Facebook code and expand on newer versions. So for example, instead of a red button that you missed a message would now be, for example, a green button, or you could personalize it, or you could do entirely new things. So the benefit for users is that you have more creativity, you have more diversity and such. Although for the company, from a company perspective, you can imagine that Mark Zuckerberg is not very willing to share his network and his code, because everybody can rebuild something that he initially built. So you have a reduced lock-in period. So on a certain centralized perspective, it's not as beneficial for the centralized party, but it's more beneficial for the users because they have more options, which can be beneficial. In the case of Bitcoin, for example, you could see this in many different forks of Bitcoin, like for example, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Diamond, even a Bitcoin Jesus. Yeah, it actually is live out there. So forkology or forking is a good thing or not a good thing. That depends on who you ask. Some people swear by it because it adds diversity, as mentioned. It adds new perspectives. On the other hand, you also split communities. So for example, you got Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash communities, quite tribalistic, opposed to each other, as well as Ethereum Classic. So you split communities. And this also is a good showcase of why forks aren't all that easy. It's, for example, if you take the Facebook example, that where you actually open source the Facebook code, you can recreate your own Facebook, but of course you need to find the users as well. It's the exact same thing when you are talking about blockchains. So, for example, when you fork Bitcoin, it doesn't mean that your new version of Bitcoin will be used by people, that you will find the miners to secure the network, that you will find the developers to contribute to your network. So copying an ecosystem is way harder than you think. Forking the code is quite easy, copying the ecosystem is quite hard. So examples to fork are of course way more than these 3 things, but these are the main categories. Like examples from within these categories are the scaling debate, the anonymity challenges that a network like Bitcoin has, which is pseudonymous, as you now know, the governance issues, stuff like that. It's important to realize the following keynote, and I will actually clean this up for you. It's important that you remember the following when talking about forks. That it makes a system anti-fragile. Let it work in for a second. It makes it anti-fragile. So what do we mean with that? In short, I would want to disuse in short a bit less. So what does it mean? Anti-fragile means that it will get, the system is getting stronger and stronger the more often you attack it. So it's best compared, for example, by the Antonopoulos example that he uses a sewer rat. It's out there, it's getting continuously attacked, and every attack makes it stronger and stronger. So another sentence is, well, I won't write it down. Another sentence for this is, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And sometimes, even if it kills you, the ID is out there. So for example, even if you kill an ID like Bitcoin, somebody out there can recopy the code and improve it and reduce the factor that you used as an attacker to kill the network. So if you found a bug in Bitcoin, for example, and you actually managed to kill off the entire network with all the miners, etc., even if you managed to do such a thing, the idea of decentralization is already out there, and everybody saw the way that you attacked the previous network, so you can fix that route and recreate something new, a bigger sewer rat in this case, or a better, more robust Bitcoin. Final point, final key takeaway from this class is that forking is an on-chain solution, which means that it's happening on the base layer. So in this case, the base layer is this layer, layer 1. If it's an off-chain solution, which forkologies or forks are not, so forks are here, yeah, you see where I'm going. Off-chain solutions are outside this spectrum. So they are often, for example, via side chains, stuff like that. They don't happen on layer 1. So for now we will focus on layer 1, on on-chain solutions, mainly on forks, and afterwards we will focus on the second layer solutions, which are in a sort of a tandem with layer 1. If you accelerate on layer 2, if you accelerate on this layer, you will accelerate layer 1. If you accelerate on layer 1, you will accelerate layer 2. So it's a sort of a tandem. It's a two-way direction. But more about that later on. For now, the key takeaways is that forkology is just nothing more than upgrading your software. You should do this because you want to add new functions. You will have a more, or you can fix your security issues and you can reverse transactions and stuff. It's like an open model with more diversity but less lock-in period for a centralized party, which is more difficult, for example, to create business cases. Examples to do this are for scaling debates, governance issues. Well, you need to improve your stuff. And finally, they are anti-fragile, so the more you attack them, the stronger they become. And it's an on-chain solution. So hopefully you learned something. Let's take a deeper dive in next session.